Welcome to Celebrating Act Two. Celebrating Act Two is the user manual for the second half of your life.
Hello again. Thanks for joining us on Celebrating Act Two. I'm John Coleman. This is my partner, Art Kirsch, and
Hello.
our special guest, Liz Lister.
So,
Hi.
Dr. Liz, even though I am slender, everybody can see that I'm slender. Uh, I'm always looking for an edge on losing weight, and I know that's one of your specialties is helping address people who are older to more successfully lose and then keep weight off. Would you help talk about just because I'm interested in
Not
general?
because you need to lose any weight.
Not because I knew, because I look so good. Uh, could you address some of that for us?
Absolutely, you bet. There's so many components to successful weight loss. We can talk about food, we can talk about exercise, and we can talk about the hormones that influence metabolism and weight. I think
Oh,
today we're focusing on the hormones, yes?
yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because after all, we can't control the food, right? I mean, so maybe we can control the hormones.
Indeed, indeed. And it's all related. They all affect each other, right? Exactly. So there are three major hormones that influence metabolism and weight. Number one in both men and women is going to be thyroid hormones, the whole thyroid hormone system. So we can come back to that and say more. Another is the adrenal hormone. We call it the hormonal axis between the brain down to the adrenal glands. And the adrenals make the hormone cortisol. A lot of people have heard about the impact of cortisol on weight. And last but not least, and this is for mostly for men, but also for women, is testosterone. These are the major hormone areas. So we could talk about each of those a little bit.
Yeah. So that makes sense to me. I got four opportunities to pull something off the shelf. That would help a little bit.
Yes,
Okay.
indeed. All right. Well, looking at thyroid, for example, this is a gland that sits right here, sort of in the middle of the neck, little bit below the Adam's apple for men. All right. And we when we talk about hormones, we talk about the hormonal symphony. All the different areas of hormones in the body are like the different sections of a symphony. And the thyroid is often compared to the conductor of the symphony. As thyroid function, it can slow down as we get older, and it influences metabolism, it influences brain sharpness, it's almost head to toe hair, skin, memory, cognition, as well as metabolism and weight. So when it slows down, people notice they say to me, I'm doing everything the same. I'm eating the same. I'm doing the same types of exercise, and I seem to be putting on weight. And we often find a thyroid component to that.
But that's
What
just not unless somebody has a severe issue with a thyroid or something like that. Then there may be a way to make sure that you're keeping it in tip-top shape. But unless you have a severe thyroid condition, that's just maybe a small but important component of being able to lose some weight. Is that
Even
correct?
if it's subtle, even if it's not severe.
Hmm.
Yes. Yes. So it's a little bit tricky these days because about it was somewhere near the middle of the last century, the 20th century, where the testing was developed for thyroid hormone levels, and also a synthetic thyroid hormone was developed, which then became like the gold standard of treating low thyroid. Whereas before that, before we had the testing, people were treated if they had symptoms of low thyroid, feeling tired, sluggish, gaining weight, memory issues, they were just given thyroid medicine. Okay, so now it's gotten a little bit trickier, but a lot of times it doesn't have to be severe for people to have these types of symptoms.
Interesting.
Mhm.
Yeah, and so,
Yeah.
but that's the thyroid seems to be perhaps a little bit more important than the other factors because the way you described it, it controls a lot of other hormones.
It does, it does. Even if it doesn't directly control them, they interact very closely. So, for
Yeah.
example, for the testosterone and estrogen, okay, those interact very intimately. There's actually receptors for those hormones on thyroid tissue.
Wow.
Yes.
So
So that's how closely.
how does the testosterone or lack of it contribute to our weight?
Okay, so testosterone is a hormone that has hundreds and hundreds of functions in the body in both men and women. For men, it's very disproportionate. It really helps men feel better to have good testosterone levels. And one way that it helps metabolism is it helps with building muscle.
Of course.
All
Right.
right.
Of
Exactly. Okay,
course.
so
Yeah.
most people experience that. They can tell if they're losing testosterone, and same for women. Later in life, our levels decline as well. They just don't start out anywhere near as high as men's levels of testosterone. But for both men and women, when we have less hormone, less testosterone, there's less muscle building, and muscle burns calories at a higher rate than other tissues. So it makes a big difference. Okay.
Okay.
So men, yeah, men
Go-
having more muscle than women on average, uh, they have a higher metabolic rate on average.
I just want to put a disclaimer for me particularly, because as you know, that I've been loath to have anything, including a multivitamin. So I don't. I mean, I take high blood pressure medicine and other things to maintain those issues that I have. And you've convinced me to take D3s, even though
Good.
I used to get some sunshine, not as much anymore. But I'm a little concerned about people who will. I don't want people to take away from this unless you say, yeah, go ahead with reckless abandon, that they should go out and get testosterone stuff and this will work on your thyroid without checking with a medical doctor, particularly somebody like
Right.
yourself who that's your specialty. Because if you
Right.
have other conditions, it may not interact with certain other medications you're taking. So that people shouldn't just say, "Oh yeah, so there's a supplement for that. I'll go take that." That's
Good
probably not
point.
Right.
a smart thing to do without
Yeah.
checking with a medical doctor. Would that be
Yeah,
correct?
exactly. That would absolutely be correct. We do not want to use the idea of reckless abandon for anything hormonal or health related. I agree
Well,
with that
that's a
completely.
good caution to put out there, Art, because there's so much on television, not only about weight loss, the newest weight loss pill or this, but there's also a lot of what do you call them? Over the counter
Right.
medications. Not just lose weight, but testosterone, build your masculinity, blah, blah, blah. All of these things, whether they're, herbal remedies or whether they're some kind of medical thing, they're available over the counter. We're constantly inundated on television and
Right.
radio
But
with
that
ads
doesn't mean
for it.
that they're safe. Like there's the really famous one of the I forget his last name, Frank Thompson, maybe a baseball player who is a spokesperson for Nugenics. And you would almost think that if he was feeling weak and tired, and he started
Right.
taking Nugenics, and all of a sudden you take a
He's a
look at him
man
in the
again.
gym again.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So
He's a
Right.
Hall of Fame player
Yeah.
once
that could be
more. Yeah.
dangerous, could it not?
Potentially, I don't tend to be too worried about these types of products, like over the counter products that people can get a hold of. I mean, that we could have a whole nother discussion another time about the placebo effect. Okay. But
Mm.
I like to monitor levels. Okay. So when I have a patient who says they're trying out a supplement, I say, okay, that's fine. If you feel fine, we should be okay. And then I can monitor the levels and see if it's effective and see if it's actually working.
Sure. And that's
Right.
the difference
Because,
between self-medication with over-the-counter products and going to Dr. Liz Lister or whoever your medical doctor is.
right.
Well,
Exactly.
also
And
you mentioned
testosterone.
cortisol. You mentioned uh,
Yes.
cortisol. So
Yes.
you can go back to testosterone because guys like to hear about that. But please let's not miss that one because I made a note that you thought that was one of the important things for people to pay attention to.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, what I wanted to just make sure I remembered to say is that testosterone is the main reason that men overall have an easier time with their weight than women do.
Ah, but
Okay.
as we stop producing testosterone, we our muscles get flabby and we don't burn the oxygen and blah 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 blah. And so we put on weight.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly. Exactly.
sure.
Yeah.
That all makes sense.
Yeah.
But Art had a good point, and that is uh, the female side of this discussion is women. You said women are affected by low testosterone too, but what's the other one is cortisol?
Cortisol.
Cortisol. Yeah. Cortisol
Yeah.
affects women and men. All right. And I think in my experience with my patients, I think that cortisol ends up being, or let's say adrenal stress. So for example, excuse me, we've got the connection between the brain and we call it the HPA axis, hypothalamus, pituitary, adrenals. All right, a lot of information about that online that people can read about if they want to learn more details. But
At
with that,
www.drlizmd.com. Would that be a good place to
I
go?
absolutely I have all kinds of articles talking about cortisol. Yes, definitely. So cortisol is the stress hormone, and it was designed for our bodies to be able to see a tiger, get scared by the tiger, and then run away. All right. So we have this big cortisol burst, and that causes our bodies to mobilize sugar into the bloodstream, which then can feed the muscles, and then we can hightail it away from whatever's chasing us.
Right. And
However,
I can see how that would connect with the adrenal gland of
right,
adrenaline. Yeah.
absolutely. Adrenaline, that's exactly right. That's it. Okay, but nowadays we don't have that type of severe acute stressors. We have ongoing low grade stressors. You're sitting in your car, you're stuck in traffic, somebody honks at you, you get that surge. You may get those surges of those stress hormones, but you cannot go and burn them off, which is how the body's designed. So the chronic release of cortisol causes tissue breakdown, it causes fatigue, it can mess up, it can really throw off blood sugar, okay, and lead to those types of conditions, inflammation in the body. Okay. So lots of different results can come from that, including, as I was saying, the mobilization of blood sugar, which then leads to the body says, okay, there's blood sugar, so we have to put out insulin. And
Uh,
insulin then can lead to weight gain. And people
yes.
can develop insulin resistance.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes.
Wow. What a fascinating combination.
So,
And it's very highly technical, isn't it? I mean, that's why you like to monitor people's hormone levels, monitor your patients. So when somebody comes to Dr. Liz Lister, MD, and they say I've gained too much weight, what's your first thing? Do you ask to look at their hormone levels?
take a blood test.
Yes. Yep. That's the first thing. Well, the first thing is a detailed history.
Mm.
All right. And I learn a lot about the person in that way. And that's the first step that we take is looking in great detail. All right. So for example, a lot of doctors will do one or two tests related to thyroid. My initial evaluation of people usually includes about 7 tests. And that's just thyroid.
Wow.
Okay. And then we have adrenals, where unfortunately in medical school, they only teach us about the extremes of adrenal disease. So if somebody has adrenal failure, that's one particular type of illness. And then the opposite extreme is going to be, for example, a tumor in the adrenals that's pouring out cortisol, and then they're developing some type of illness. But there's a big range in between that
Yeah.
we want to evaluate and address. So there's
Sure.
more tests that can be done.
And all those subtleties, first of all, you mentioned those three areas, but all the subtleties of each area make for, a myriad of combinations. And which one is optimal health for your patient? That's the hard part.
So
Exactly.
without, because I know it's very super difficult to generalize. other than, like if you saw somebody, you could say, well, lose weight, stop smoking, drink less. What I mean, you could do those are normal things you could say as a generalization.
Right.
If there were a takeaway to somebody who may feel just a little lethargic or something like that, what would be the kind of things that they could, just anybody could do to maybe improve some of these areas that you've talked about? It's not just taking a multivitamin, I assume.
Multivitamin helps, fish oil, vitamin D. Those are the main in terms of supplements that just generally speaking help all the cells function at their best. Right? So that's what I would say in terms of supplementation, but really it's those are just as important as what you were just saying. Definitely not smoking, doing what you can to be in a what I like to call a right-sized body. Okay, just a healthy sized body, not that's not the same thing as saying skinny. All right, that's important. And eating, what we eat just plays a bigger and bigger role in our overall health. Mostly, I just want to remind people that our genes only determine maybe up to a third of what happens with our health, that the other two-thirds are based on the choices that we make.
Well, that's
Wow,
great.
that's
Thank you.
good advice. Good
Yeah.
advice.
You know what? I'm so excited about maybe addressing some of these issues that I think that I'm going to run out before I start on my new diet and have a piece of cheesecake. I haven't had a piece of cheesecake in so long. I really, and I love New York cheesecake.
Oh,
Anyway, thank you, Dr.
enjoy
Liz.
it.
Thank you,
A pleasure.
and we'll see you again soon. Yes.
Wonderful.
For more on Celebrating Act Two, visit our webpage, follow us on Facebook, subscribe to us on YouTube, and tell your friends. Celebrating Act Two is the user manual for the second half of your life.